first of all, it's a pleasure to be among such esteemed panelists and among all of you who are here to witness some nice conversations happening today evening. So, the first panel discussion is about to read or not to read, and that's quite a challenging question for all of us. Yeah, we all know that books require some sustained kind of time and attention, which we are all deficit of these days. I think much ADHD will be among us, this generation. We're using phones more than ever, around social media more than ever. And we are all deficient of it because, especially post-pandemic, we are kind of riddled. And anxiety has fused in our environment. Whatever free time we get, we try to do a lot of things. A lot of things are lined up for us. We want to go back to those shows to binge watch and those movies to have watched. And then we have browse our nets, our tabs, and we scroll through our phones. And amidst all this, we kind of, the reading has gone out of the window. And we really don't have that kind of time, and we don't make that kind of time. So Ritu, first question I would like to ask you. It was stipulated that with the internet and with the smartphones, this is all going to be replacing books in next 20 years completely. Do you think this is happening faster than it was stipulated? And very importantly, are we okay with it?
Thank you, Navita. I think this is a transition and probably we are halfway there. The transition is there because there is a digital revolution happening and technology is right on our faces. The ChatGPT is the latest them all. This is something we cannot wish away. Okay. See, the difference between our generation, as in mine and yours, and the younger generation is that we were bereft of choices. We had to read a book, we had to go to the nearest library or struggle to go to a bookstore to buy a book, right? Or we had a Tribune falling into our camera in the morning at 7 and that was our window to the world. But the generation now has a plethora of choices. Those choices haven't been given to them by anybody else except us, right? A 7-year-old kid who's playing with an iPhone hasn't invented the iPhone. It's the generation preceding that's invented the iPhone and given it to him. We are giving them those choices. They have the choices to make and they are exercising those choices. So what is wrong in that, right? And within those stipulated 100 minutes a day, supposing that you have, if a child chooses to read for 40 minutes and the rest of the 60 minutes he chooses to be on social media, you and me are giving him that choice, right? So this whole narrative of kind of demonizing, the youngsters and saying that, they're always into their, gadgets and all that. So who's handed over them the gadgets? They haven't fallen from an alien from outer space, hasn't given them that. It is us. Okay? And the last part about 20 years hence, I would tend to believe otherwise. I would tend to believe that probably, once it's the case of the overkill and we've had too much of social media, etc. exposure, the books are going to come back. And they're going to come back with a vengeance. That's what I feel. That's a counter argument, but I genuinely feel that way. Because too much of anything is, going to transform things.
I agree with it that we've handed the device to this younger generation. But at the same point, we've forgotten to keep checks also. We've handed them and with the pandemic, it became like a kind of very sort of thing for them, very handy for them for everything. But we've forgotten to keep check somewhere, and that's where they've outgrown the habit of going to those 40 minutes or 20 minutes of reading.
Let's be fair, Navita. Have we not kept the checks on ourselves as well? You and me used to do a lot more reading when we were younger, right? Because we didn't have choices. It wasn't that we were saints.
Yes.
We would make a sneak peek into the nearest cinema hall wherever was possible. So it wasn't that we were saints, right? We just didn't have the menu of choices. It is just like walking to a restaurant and having a very diverse menu and you have so many things to choose from. We had those 4 things, right? We just had a bookstore, a school, this thing, or probably the nearest library, or at the most newspaper coming to us. And we
are not spoiled for choices.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to between books and devices. Yeah.
I mean, something like even a Doordarshan we used to hate, but that was the only thing that we had, right?
See, books will never die. I'm very clear about that. Even today, I may have a Kindle or iPad to read from, but the charm of holding a book, the smell and texture of the pages, We just can't do with it without that. So when the technology sweeps across, the digital influx is there. Definitely, people will return back to the books. This is for sure. And from the art, like what she just said, we definitely didn't have choices. But today, it's not that children are not reading; they're reading. Whatever they get hands-on, whatever digital devices we have, everybody's reading. Whatever they like to read.
Probably the attention span has shortened.
Exactly, yeah.
With their reading.
I like to read 2 books at a time, at any given day, for 2 different genres. I have to read, even if for 10 minutes, but so does my son. He also
Do you
loves.
believe that the gap between the readers and non-readers, out of choice is more? Because I've seen the person who as a child used to pick up a book. Now as an adult, those books are crammed to some corner of life. And though we still, romanticize with the idea of that ideal vacation with a book, or me time with in a cafe and having a cup of coffee with my favorite book. But that's where we are just, limiting it to, rather than actually picking up a book and read.
Yes, definitely, I do agree on that.
Yeah. So moving to that, similarly to that, Colonel Navdeep, do you believe that, research used to say that people who are frequent readers are more happier in life, they are more satisfied in life, and also they are more successful professionally. Do you feel a non-reader is deprived in some way or the other, especially when it comes to employability or communications or, that aspect in his personality? Something is not amiss there?
You see, satisfaction and happiness is rather relative. So to say that only books will give you that, I won't agree on that totally. Yes, books do enhance our knowledge, our focus, and all those things do happen. And we love to read books. But there are people who find happiness through real life experiences, through virtual world, the digital world. There's so much to see today. And the kind of series which is there available today, Netflix or otherwise, which was not there in our times. So there's nothing wrong in that. I don't agree on that totally. There definitely books do have an impact. We sitting at home can get so much of knowledge about places, culture, traditions. But then same does the social media also does it. So it's just how a child like to adapt, and how it is.
So that means books are, if not completely replaceable, the similar kind of satisfaction or happiness or contentment or some questions that you need to, find answers for yourself.
Definitely.
Can be looked in for somewhere else.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
That's an interesting thought, actually.
If I may just add
please.
something here. So the human mind, there are layers of cognitive dimensions to us, right? Somewhere I feel the whole concept of reading is over-glorified in society, okay? Reading does satiate a lot of those layers, but we cannot say that reading is the be-all and end-all of life. I myself personally know of a lot of youngsters who are like avid readers and they are into their books for like 8 hours a day or something. But once they come into society and in the middle of a conversation, they are all they don't know what to say because maybe the other faculties were not developed enough. So reading is one very important portion of our lives, but the other real life experiences that come through traveling and XYZ, see, another thing is, aren't you reading me right now? We're also reading each other. The connotation of reading with the written word is a very limited meaning to it.
So there has to be an extension after you've read, then what?
Yes, and we do read between the lines. We read each other. We are always observing all the time. These are also forms of reading.
Absolutely. Poonam, would you like to add on to what Ritu just said? Because that's very interesting, and since you've been into teaching.
So I do believe that reading is also a philosophy in life, because till you don't give meaning to the print that you're reading, there's nothing. So effectively, reading is teaching you so much empathy, so much, I feel, brain connectivity, comprehension, and understanding for life. Even to relate to a lot of life scenarios is something that you're reading and relating. And also, I feel the imagination is developed, because reading about a character develops a different image in your life. I've been following Lee Child books for a long time. The way Jack Reacher was formed in my mind, I'm sorry to say, Tom Cruise didn't make me happy at all. So somewhere the line, had it been left to my imagination, I would have enjoyed it more.
So that's definitely there. The adaptations on the books and everything, that is kind of disappointment. But then reading also helps you to, enter into a world, and whatever the author has written, imagine it in your own, create your own world. That's what we talk about, quantum physics, parallel worlds. So book does open that doors of, parallel doors. But I think within the panel, we've seen that there is kind of a concern with this entire division of reading or non-reading, and how far should we push our kids to read. So with this kind of divided on the reading, do you think the kids today are missing on the benefits of reading? Because we are definitely giving them avenues, we don't want to push them to read much. And also, do you believe there is a significant link between the family's reading habit and how a child is going to pick up a book in the future? Because if we are not including books and references from books or citations from books as our parents used to do, and giving them a reference that this is coming from this source, they might miss a chance to pick up a book later in life.
Definitely, I do believe that the family does play a role, because if you see an adult in your family picking up a book, that does develop. There's a new saying nowadays that the teacher is the second parent, but let the parent become the second teacher. And like we all grew up with the mom as being the first teacher. So somewhere through storytelling, initially your mother did open up your imagination. And if you make some time for books, make a reading corner, introduce books to your child in the early, even if they pick up a book for a very little time, I'm sure. I can only give you my example, where my mother was a voracious reader. She had the same kind of environment for both of us, that's my brother and me. I picked up books. I love to read anything. I can even read a newspaper envelope. I'm never bored at airports or dental appointments. But whereas my brother did not take to reading, he can barely sit for some time with a book. Academically, he did much more better than me. So there are two contrasts to it, whether reading does help or not. But I still feel that I do sometimes feel that there's so many things that I kind of know because of reading, which I do feel that he's not been able to. Maybe he's traveled also more than me. But I do feel that reading does definitely develop if it is opened up to children at home. And of course, not necessarily, there is a choice.
There should not be a compulsion that they have to be avid readers by the end of it.
Yeah.
But then they should fancy the idea of picking up a book related to them, maybe discard it and have, probably it helps them analytically also. I believe. And I agree that not, even if you as a parent are a ferocious reader, all the kids are going to take up. I have 3, and except for my middle one, the others really don't want to go near the books. So yes, yeah, that's there. Something.
You see, definitely develops a reading habit, which is good. I happen to come from Punjab University. We grew up there, and
we have a beautiful library.
Oh yes,
and
definitely.
The entire cultural going. I used to just go in that old library building just to have that nostalgic feel of the books and the
I
era.
will now go also there.
Yeah.
And then a Stanford State Library.
Yes, spirals. Yes,
Exactly.
It's a typical setting for a
Very true.
library.
Yeah. The second family came in the form of armed forces. We all have seen so many of our seniors sitting out here. Armed forces, every battalion has got a library. And if you are lucky enough, you have commanding officers who make you write. And I remember when I had just joined the unit, it was just 1 month ago, and there was inspection by my commanding officer. So the moment he entered, he went straight to the loo. He says, "Where are your books?" I looked at him, I said, "There's a loo." He said, "That's what I'm asking you. You're supposed to read, even when you sit on the throne. You can't be, fantasizing something else. I want you to read." And that day onwards, till now, of course, I got a few library of books of my own. But that's how your superiors, your elders, they make you read. It's very
And you
good.
don't become a reader overnight.
No, never. It just, you develop over time. You can't force anybody to read, but it has to come from your within.
So Ritu, anytime you'll be picking up a book.
Yeah. Very soon after this conversation.
We'll do it together. If you're struggling, we'll help you out.
No, I'm not struggling at all. It's by choice. So, just taking an example, a cue from what he said. Army officers and people in the Indian Army and the Defence Forces are supposed to be the most well-rounded people. and not because they read a lot, but because reading happens to be a part of the entire scheme of things. So there's physical activity, there is outdoors, there's a lot of socializing happening. Socializing happening that is interpersonal. So what I come back to my earlier point, that reading accentuates you as a personality, but again I repeat, it cannot be the be all and end all of life. There has to be, whatever we are today is a mix of different experiences we've gathered from different means, So it's like the consumption patterns have changed. The mediums have changed, the channels have changed. That's about it. We are practically also reading all the time.
No, I completely agree. And since we have a lot of platforms, I think it's easier. Sometimes you don't want
Access
to pick
is
up a
one.
book
Yes,
because of the topic or XYZ reasons, but you've heard somebody talking about it is also a motivation to go back to the source and read more. Yeah. So we are pressing on time and keeping the tradition up for not delaying the other panelists to come. Any last comments and then we
Just we take 2 questions from the audience.
okay. Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Yeah. Please.
Yeah, I would
to
like
any
to
of
ask
the
that. We are confining.
You
our
want to
reading-
ask to
No, in general,
General.
including the audience.
Everybody hear him or can I pass it?
We are confining our reading to books alone. But today's times, if I have to, go somewhere and talk something, I never refer to a book. There's so much available on internet, chat, GPT, you name a thing, views on Instagram, blah, blah. So we are spending a lot of time on net reading. I think the net reading is getting very popular. Why should I go to a store and buy a book, 600, although I read a lot, 600 pages, when I can get the condensed version of various aspects onto it? I think Ritu, you were covering.
Yeah, so there's a debate between digital natives and digital immigrants. So we are digital immigrants and the younger generation are the natives. That's the only difference. So when this whole, this debate about kids reading less, I don't feel they are reading less. They are reading from different sources. They're reading from places where they have easy access to. And it's a natural thing to always follow the path of least resistance. If you can get something at the palm of your hand.
And they're much more well versed than us.
Absolutely, sir. I agree with you. They are far more clued up than us. They're far more confident. I don't think it's a downward spiral trend at all.
No, I agree that. I think we have the most typical panel. We agree on everything we say. We don't want to create more conflicts than as it is we have. Yeah, please.
My question is, since we refer to the internet so often, don't you think misinformation is also traveling so fast and that can really hamper the growth and everything? So what is your take on that?
Absolutely, I do believe that you really can't rely on Google now because I believe you get paid answers for that. So somewhere down the line, it's better to reference to a book itself by
Exactly my
itself.
point.
No, see, especially if you're a researcher, and I think that's where we have to teach our kids, because they're native generation, digital generation, that you have to go back to the source. If it is documented somewhere with authenticity, then definitely you can quote it even from Google. Because as she said, there's a lot of paid information there.
Plagiarism
And
happens
yeah,
and so many
absolutely.
things,
No, but there is a distinction between the authentic sites. I mean, you have to delve a little deeper into that. So even fake news and all gets detected by these.
Yeah, we do have those softwares. But yes, they have to deeper into that area.
You just have to be sure that the source
Exactly.
is reliable.
Exactly.
Of course, as of today, even the BBC is not reliable. So
As of today.
that's
I
another
just have an
debate.
observation, not a question. A book can be used as a weapon. There's a saying, you can throw a book at somebody. You will not throw your back.
Books can be used in so many ways, more than a weapon. And we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that after the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.